Now you know the story, right? Now we have the golden calf, and they've risen up to revelry, and they're all sinning against the Lord, and Moses throws down the tablets and breaks them, right? And then they repent, and they're all apologetic, and we're so sorry, you go fix it, Moses. Moses goes back to God, right? And this time Moses says, I'm sorry, let not your wrath burn against your people, forgive us, be good. And God says, okay, he relents from his anger, even though they broke the covenant with him, and he gives them another set of commandments. But this time, who has to write it? Because the first set he wrote with, it says it's written with God's own hand, the finger of the Lord. Okay, wrote in the stone, the tablets, right? But this time, when he goes up, he tells Moses, now you carve the commandments in stone, exactly what I tell you to write. Okay, so now he gets the second set and he brings it down. And before he brings it all down, he also is told to build an ark so that they can put the commandments into the ark and carry it around. Okay, because this is the word of the Lord. And they have to have a place of honor in which to place it and carry it. So the Ark of the Covenant is made because on those stone tablets is written the covenant that they are keeping with God. Make sense? They also build a tent for the Ark, right? So you put the commandments in the Ark in the tent. Okay? And this tent is called the meeting tent because this is where Moses would go to meet with God. And anytime the people wanted to pray or ask God for something or speak to God, they would tell Moses, and he would go into the meeting tent, and he would bring their petitions, their requests, and their thoughts before the Lord. Okay, so that's the meeting tent, the tent of meeting. So now we get to it. Exodus 33. As Moses entered the tent, the column of cloud would come down and stand at its entrance, while the Lord spoke with Moses. On seeing the column of cloud, all the people would rise and worship. The Lord used to speak to Moses face to face. Does God have a face?
I suppose so. We're in his image.
Okay, but at this point, I know for God there's no time, so it's a really tricky question, okay? Because Jesus is the face of the invisible God, right? So historically, for the people of Israel, it says, Moses spoke to God face to face, even though for God there is no time, and so definitely he's, if he sees anything, he sees the face of Christ. But at this point, historically, Jesus has not yet been born. Right, so I don't understand it. I'm not going to try to explain it. But so at this point, God has no face. But still he says he speaks to him face to face. So what they're trying to get across here is that there was an intimacy, a real closeness between Moses and God, as if he were speaking face to face. Okay? I've put here in brackets Exodus 33 verses 18 to 23. And there's that word beauty. Okay, this is the passage, you can look it up on your own, we don't have time, and this is the passage when Moses actually says, Lord, let me see your face, right? Show me your face. And God says, I'll let you see my beauty. I will let you see my beauty, my glory, right? But you won't be able to look upon my face. I'm going to put you here, protect you in this rock, the cleft of a rock. And I'm going to pass before you. And as I pass before you, I'm going to cover up your face so you don't see my beauty. But then, as I pass, you'll be able to see my back. And that will be enough for you. Okay? So it's interesting because that passage is important in a way because the word beauty is now equated with glory. The glory of the Lord, the beauty of the Lord, right? The cloud, all mean the same thing at this point. There's another passage I also put in brackets, and that's in Exodus 34, verses 27 to 35. And that's after Moses has gone up and spoken to the Lord again. he comes down to the people, and they start noticing something looks kind of different. He's not the same. He starts to glow, okay? That his face is transformed, okay? And so he's giving off this light from his face, and they know that it happens after he speaks to God. That something is happening to Moses by being in God's presence. It's rubbing off, right? The glory of the Lord is rubbing off. And so now when he comes down, they see his face is shining, and again, they're kind of freaked out, and they, in order not to scare the people, Moses begins to wear a veil. Okay? See, this is the origin of the burqa, right? This is... I'm joking. Okay, but he's wearing this veil all the time, right? In order to protect the people so that they're not afraid. They're not afraid of him. Let's go on. Exodus 40. This is my all-time favorite quote from this section of the Bible. And this is the one you need to memorize and it's easy for you to memorize because it's the very last sentence in the book of Exodus. Right? You don't have to memorize the numbers or anything. It's the very last paragraph or sentence in the book of Exodus. Easy, right? And it sums up everything that comes before it. All the things we've learned about this glory cloud, the Shekinah glory cloud, is here. Okay? It says, "Then the cloud covered the meeting tent, and the glory of the Lord filled the dwelling. Moses could not enter the meeting tent because the cloud settled down upon it, and the glory of the Lord filled the dwelling. Whenever the cloud rose from the dwelling, the Israelites would set out on their journey. But if the cloud did not lift, they would not go forward. Only when it lifted did they go forward. In the daytime, the cloud of the Lord was seen over the dwelling, whereas at night, fire was seen in the cloud, by the whole house of Israel, in all the stages of their journey." How long was their journey?
40 years.
40 years. Technically 38, but we won't get into that. Okay. 40 years, imagine, by every single person in the camp of Israel was seen the glory of the Lord. And it was seen on the outside, it was this column of cloud, this pillar of cloud, but at night, when you could see through the smoke, on the inside, you could see the consuming, burning fire, the fire of God. And what is amazing is that, what did this cloud do, right? It led them, just like it led the Israelites right to the Red Sea. It continues to lead them for 40 years through the desert. And what does it do? Every time the cloud settles upon the meeting tent, they can't do anything. They stay there. And they worship the Lord. They are in the presence of God, right? But as soon as the cloud lifts and begins to move, now they go and they get the poles. All the poles get together because only the poles are allowed to carry the ark, right? It's the Levites that carry the poles, okay? And so the Levites hold the poles and the ark is lifted, and they make sure they move the ark underneath the glory cloud. Okay? And so the cloud is leading. They make sure the ark is underneath. When the cloud stops, it settles down, and they put the ark down, and they move out, because the glory of the Lord fills the place. How long? Here's your trick question. Some of you know this. How long does it take? Would it take, if you just wanted to go from point A to point B and enter the promised land and just travel right across without stopping, how long would it take you?
Not very long.
11 days.
11 days. 11 days. 40 years these people took.
They were slow walkers. They went backwards.
11 days if they wanted to make it straight
They
through.
went backwards.
They went backwards, they went forward. Who was leading them?
Moses,
God.
God. Okay? And that's the neat thing we need to understand here. Okay, when the cloud lifted, they could move. As soon as the cloud settled, that's where they set up camp.
And Moses was with them all this
Moses
time?
was with them all the time. Okay. And the thing is, once they settled camp, they didn't know if it was for a half an hour, for a day, or for 6, 7 years.
Yeah.
Right? When the cloud lifted again, then they move again. Right? That's why it took so long. Because there's a lesson that God was teaching them. Right? What's the lesson?
Follow me.
Follow me. Trust in me. Follow me. Okay? The Lord is leading. You need to trust and follow. And once Jesus comes in the New Testament, right? He says the same words. He finds his 12 and he says, follow me. Okay? He verbalizes what we're learning in the Old Testament is made explicit and clear in the New Testament. But it's the same message, right? It's the same lesson. Follow me. Trust in me. Okay? I will make your path straight. Crooked lines. I don't know how. God knows how. Okay? But that's the passage there that summarizes everything and helps you understand that. So hopefully you see here that the glory of the Lord, the beauty of the Lord, the presence of God was with them for 40 years. They never lost sight of God. Right? If you know that, that is what makes it so surprising that they grumbled against the Lord, that they complained, that they... If you see this glory cloud lifting and moving and leading and the voice coming from it, how do you doubt? How do you doubt? How does your heart become so hardened that you turn away and you say, you know, I'd rather go die as a slave in Egypt. Let's go back. Right? How does that happen? And if you have the presence of the Lord in front of you with your own eyes, how does that happen? And yet, that's a lesson, again, for us. Right? Sometimes, the closer you are to someone, when you have them with you every day and you see them, that's when you take them for granted. Right? It's when they show up once in a while, out of the blue. Then it's like, whoa, something special. But when they're with you every day, pouring out their love upon you, that's when you take them for granted. And it's sad, right? But it's a lesson. It's a lesson for us. So let us learn this lesson. I'm going to skip here to 1 Corinthians 10, because this is what St. Paul talks about. He refers back to this time. And he says, our ancestors were all under the cloud. That's what they're talking about, this cloud. It's not talking about some other cloud, right? And all passed through the sea, the Red Sea, right? And all of them were baptized into Moses in the cloud and in the sea. Okay, isn't that an interesting passage? Now, it makes more sense if you realize that when John was writing his gospel, he talked about Jesus speaking to this guy named Nicodemus. Remember? And Nicodemus was the one who said, how can a man be born again? How can he go back into his mother's womb and be born again? Remember that? Okay. And Jesus clarifies. And he says, he doesn't have to go back into the womb again. No, that's not what I'm talking about. He has to be born again, but born from above. And he says, John 3, verse 5, okay, no one can enter the kingdom of God without being born of water and spirit. Water and spirit. This is what? Baptism. Okay? We're baptized through water and the Spirit. So if you look at the passage in 1 Corinthians, the other side again, and it says the cloud and then the sea, which is the water? The sea.